It's a hobby, it's an obsession, it's a way of life. It's what gives us a cause to get up in the morning. It's all about who we are and where we came from and who they were and where they came from and going back in time through our ancestral trail.
I'm nosy and I like to put things together, and which is a perfect solution for genealogy. I love the computer, the fact of using our website as well as many other websites, but I also love books.
I find it very interesting, the puzzling aspect of genealogy. When I see a blank spot in an ancestor chart, I wonder what that family was like, what that ancestor was like. And I like to try and solve that. So I guess this is kind of my puzzling hobby, is filling in the blanks on the family history tree.
And I don't know a lot about the people and the things that are in here, but I can tell you bits and pieces. The Victoria Genealogical Society has been around since 1978. It was created by a small group of people who got together to share their fascination with family history. Since then, it's evolved from a living room get-together with a cup of tea to a full-blown society. We are a registered nonprofit. We are completely self-funded through our members and their support and their donations. We have our own resource center here that you can see in Vic West. About 400 linear feet of books, periodicals, magazines, and resources, because not everything is on the internet. We do have over 300 members right now. A lot of them are in town and local, but we have members from further afield. So people who have Victoria roots who don't live here are members, and people like me who have no connection to Victoria whatsoever. I'm a member because I love genealogy.
The first thing you need to do is either download a pedigree chart from the internet and print it out, or come in and get one from us. And you sit down and you start with yourself and your parents, and you go through the pedigree chart and put down everything that you know. You work in pencil because you will erase stuff. There's no two ways about it. You'll also use family charts, put down everything that you know. Bring that in and sit down with us, and we can go over it and say, well, this is where you now need to look. You can look at ships lists, you can look at immigration lists, birth registrations. We have the BC registrations here. We will get you started, but some people think that it's a big deal to get started. It isn't, as long as you know who you are and you know who your parents are, and from there it just keeps on rolling and keeps on growing.
There's a lot of privacy laws that protect current information. So your personal information, your birth information, your children's information, that's all protected by privacy laws. So the current information that people have, that people hold, is harder to get at. So you need to get that from the family members directly. Once you get that and get into the early 1900s, that's where you can make linkages to computer databases. So there's computer databases that can go back centuries. I've now tracked my family back into the early 1700s and one part of my mother's family into the middle of the 1600s. So computer databases are wonderful for that kind of research.
Oh, they're so fragile. These are Robert Alexander May's glasses from, I think he was born about 1840.
Wow.
So I can put them on
Wow.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Do they suit? That's about it. Genealogy and family history is different for everyone. A lot of us are fortunate in that we have things that are passed down from our parents, from our grandparents, that little tangible things that we can touch and feel and turn over and look at, and they trigger memories, and they sort of stimulate history for us. And so for collectors, like I'm fortunate to be one, I have lots of bits and pieces. Old photos are awesome. My favorite ones are the ones with no names on the back, yeah, because then I look at them and I have sort of an interest in finding out who they are and how they fit in, and why my grandmother kept those in a shoebox for so long. Sorry. So that's Lily McIntyre. So that picture is probably from about 1920. So the other box is just bits and pieces that were collected, like a postcard that somebody sent from Spain in 1963.
I think it's so important that we don't forget, how our ancestors contributed to the lifestyle that we enjoy today, the sacrifices they made for the lifestyles that we enjoy today.
That's,
I have some ancestors that emigrated from Ireland, you know, in the very early 1800s, 1819, one family. That was a sailing vessel that took weeks to come across. Passengers died on board. The circumstances in Ireland were, you know, they were terrible at the time. And their first years in Canada were pioneers. And I would just hate to think that we would forget about all the sacrifices they made. And it's important for me to write this down for my children. And even if they're not interested today, they might be later, or their children or their grandchildren might be interested. And as long as I've got it written down for someone in the family later, they'll be able to solve their little genealogy puzzle.
So this photograph, these are my grandfather's grandparents. So if I'm generation 1, this is generation 5 ago. On the left is John Henry Bartle. He was born in 1853. And on the right is Ida Quick, his wife, and she was born, I believe, in about 1856. We all have our family's lore, you know, the bits and pieces that we were told about. You know, grandmother would tell you about her great uncle and, you know, her aunt who actually had an affair with a duke and there was a love child. And back in the day they called them illegitimate, and we prefer to think of them as, you know, extra ancestors. And so there's family stories, and people write things down, people keep books, people have journals. It's just all sorts of different ways of tracking things. She has a locket on just below the lace of her collar, and that locket is the same one that I am wearing today.
I'm an adoptee, and so for 35 years of my life I was without background information. I know the benefit and the necessity of knowing where you came from, how you got here, what made you who you are today. And I found my birth family. I found some very interesting things. My father was one of 11 children. 2 were given away because that's what they did in the dirty 30s when they were all hungry. Whoever needed an extra farmhand, they got the child. You may find a very strong trend of a health issue in the family, and this can be beneficial to you, to your doctor to help you, and to your children.
One of the wonderful things about the computer technology is making connections with family members that you hadn't known before, and sharing information through email, sharing photographs over email, and sharing family stories over email.
Oh, it's all about the stories. I mean, names and dates are great, but it's all about the stories.
I've got a personal story for you. In 1872, a Scottish sea captain died at sea in the China Seas. He was 41 years of age and left behind 4 orphan children, aged from 2 to 11. The children were split amongst their family members, and over the next generations lost track of each other. Last year, 140 years later, through the great treasures of genealogy research, we had a family reunion in Scotland of 4 children that were living descendants of the 4 children of the sea captain.
These are the bits and pieces that we had to work with when we were trying to identify who these folks were. The inn at Laurel Point, that was an exciting adventure for us. About a little over a year ago, when the media put out a story about a photo album that had been left behind at the inn at Laurel Point in probably the 70s. And there were 204 photos. They went from the turn of the last century, so the late 1800s, early 1900s, up to about the Second World War. There was one name in the front of the album, a David Stark, and that was it. And we worked with them, the inn at Laurel Point, to identify the people in the photographs and pull the family together and see the Victoria connection. And we went back to Scotland, and we were in Montreal, and we connected with a woman whose photo is in that album when she was a teenager, when she was 16. She's in her 80s now, and she lives in Victoria. And it was just quite an adventure. It was a lot of fun.
Newspapers are a wonderful resource for us also because they do have obituaries, which are a huge supply of information. There is a newspaper index that you can look up names and events in, and they'll tell you the papers that they're in. There's a lot of newspapers online. There's a lot of obituaries online now since 2002, and you can go back and print them off the internet. Obituaries will tell you so much information. If you're lucky, some people don't write good obituaries.
It's awesome.
I've got Granny's trunk.
Granny's trunk.
Granny's trunk, just a trunk load full of treasures, just like this.
Yeah. Ask Granny, you know, if you're into family history, you want to talk about it. But if your family's not interested, who do you talk to? So going and having the opportunity to meet with Mrs. Jones and say, Mrs. Jones, tell me about your grandparents. And her eyes light up, you know, and we make these notes for her. And so it's important. People's families are important. And sometimes in some of the senior facilities, they don't have an opportunity even to have family with them. So we try to fill that void, and it's very rewarding.
We have a children's detective program going here with the book, and a lot of the adults like to use the book also to just get themselves started because it is simple and easy to follow.
If you're a family historian, we sort of have this motto saying, I break for cemeteries. So the opportunity to wander through a cemetery and look at the names and sort of learn a little bit about the people is really exciting. So for me, not having local connections to Victoria, if I'm wandering through Ross Bay one day and I'll see the name, and I go, who was that? So I'll come up here to this resource center and I'll look up their death registration because we have all of the BC vital statistics on microfilm here. So, you know, I can look up someone and see who they were and where when they died and what they died of and who their parents were, and then go, oh, their parents. So then I'm going to go over to the city directories and I'm going to look up where they lived and find the street address. And I'm going to go over to find a census and see who the other members of the family were. And it just sort of, you know, keeps me busy. It's fun. It's a little strange hobby. My children say I'm hanging out with the dead people, but it's a lot. It's really fun, and you can do this anywhere. A random act of genealogical intrigue.
We have books here on births, deaths, and marriages, many which are not on the internet.
Genealogy in the Classroom is an incredible online resource. It's designed for teachers and educators and kids. And it's a website that's housed on our parent site. And it's resources on getting started for, I guess, youth and students and what is genealogy. So Genealogy in the Classroom really is a tool for teachers to use for free. It's out there. And it's for students to use and learn about social sciences, learn about history, and learn about family. And we're really proud of it.
Does it change our life today? No, but it makes us a fuller person.
Our volunteers will help you get started. So we don't do it for you, but we'll do it with you. And it's really exciting because when someone walks in with a shoebox and they open it up and we're all just kind of like groundhogs, and we all pop up from our chair and the head goes up and it's like, ooh, what have you got there? Oh, tell me about it. Oh, can I help? Oh, that's so neat. We're a Victoria organization, and we support our community. We go out and we have, we participate in events. We go out to the Esquimalt 150 celebrations and we'll have a booth there. We go to the Royal BC Museum for Veterans Week and we'll talk to people about their history. We work with Veterans Affairs to keep the records and document the burials at the God's Acre Military Cemetery in Esquimalt. We have a Pioneers Index that we track all of the early people for Victoria. And you know, anybody's welcome to come in and just poke around and see what we have. We're open to the public, we're here 6 days a week, and it's a lot of fun. Just be curious. Tell them I sent you, they'll let you in.